Welcome everybody to our weekly group call for the 1st of June. We have quite an exciting call ahead, and we're going to be looking at a few different aspects. So let's jump straight into that. We have our results from last week. So I posted a very nice post in our group results about trading back to the baseline. And based on that approach, I'm actually going to be covering something very, very powerful in this call, which is going to make this baseline trading such an effective and beautiful thing for you guys to actually work with. And this is what it is going to be looking like. So very, very awesome thing to look at, which we're going to cover in really great detail. I also wanted to just reiterate, we have our Amazon gift card giveaway. So we sent out a survey for people to complete, and due to the overwhelming response from that survey, there's going to be some restructuring of our group calls, which is going to be very beneficial for people who are interested in trading, interested in the DTB system and trading futures. And also for our complimentary subscribers, we've got many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of complimentary subscribers who are using our complimentary shadow trading and volume breakout markers. So very important for you guys to complete that licensing step as we move on to our new licensing servers today. We're also going to look at a quick update to our Fibonacci Levels indicator. And then finally, we're going to end up on our game plan for the week ahead, as well as the update that we made to that baseline Wick trader strategy. So really good jam-packed call today. Okay, so with regards to the DTB bars, so the DTB bars, and like I said in a little bit earlier, is we're going to make the group call focused on an aspect of the DTB system that is going to show people why the DTB system is such a no-brainer for futures trader trading on NinjaTrader. So, that's going to be really helpful for people that are interested in trying out the DTB system, as well as new members, to really get a foundational aspect of, each individual tool or each group of tools, so that they can, make informed decisions with their trading. So we're going to jump into that one first. But just before we do that, how does our signal chart? So as we start every call, we've got our signal chart in play over here. There's been such incredible signals already generated from it since the beginning of the session. As you can see here, 6 p.m. price below the our band there for the trend following, coming down, a lot of breakout markers left behind, arrows determining reversal points, breakout markers left behind. Some really good moves over there. So, this is one of the charts that we're going to focus on our next group call, actually, to really help people understand exactly what they're looking at and how to actually trade it effectively. Okay, so what I wanted to do now is I wanted to bring over this chart, and I'll just give me a second while I do something here. Okay, perfect. There we go. So this chart I've got up on the screen over here, it is a 1000. It's a DTB bars chart, 1,800, 100 chart, and I've got the last 60 days loaded. So it's 60 calendar days. So whatever trading days are within that range this is what it's going to capture. We've got break at end of day off on this chart, and I've also included the trading hours break line. So this is just going to give us a line to show us where each session basically is. Okay, so I'm going to just disable the camera too while we are doing this. Okay, so this chart gives us a larger overall baseline for price. So there's no session breaks over here, except for there's no break as in, the bars are restarting. They're basically continuing a baseline from previous sessions. So it gives us a good perspective of what the baseline is for price. So what we are looking at here is how price levels or baselines for price are evident, often continuing or being revisited numerous times. This gives you information that most traders have zero idea about. You definitely can't visually see these, if you were on a 5-minute chart. There's way too much noise, and with all different candle sizes and wicks, that takes the focus away from price levels. So we are able to see what price is doing at different levels just by the duration of price at price levels. It tells us how important that level is. So as you can see, this price level over here has particularly been in place since the 14th of May. So if we look at the chart over here, 14th of May, you can see how, there's the 15th of May, 16th of May, up until the 20th, 21st, and then we had a breakdown over here, 23rd, and then back up again, back to this level, 27th of May, 28th of May, we had a brief break up here, 29th, and we're back over here, 30th, 31st, and now we're up until today. So, such vital information because it's really showing us the baseline for price. I mean, this is where price has continually returned to over the last, what are we looking, over 15 days worth of data, where this price has continually, been working around different levels. So, if we go back on the chart, we'll see how these levels keep, and as you know, every single pink line you see is actually a new session starting. So you're going to get a very good picture of, especially at the beginning of a trading day, loading up a chart like this to identify where the baseline of price is. And you're going to be able to see these wicks that are going to form. And, you can go back as far as you want on the chart and you can see how, the session's going to start. There's going to be a baseline for price. There could be a break. The next session can start. There's a baseline for price. So the price is going to continually form these baselines throughout the trading day. And normally, if there's a huge drop in price or a huge, rise in price for the next session, the price is going to, going to form the wick, and eventually it's going to form the baseline. So as an example over here, 6th of April, the trading day, 6 p.m., this baseline continued all the way up until, 9:30, 9:40 a.m. So, this level has been in constant place since the beginning of that session. Same thing over here. The session ends, new session starts. There's the baseline for price. So again, nothing, it's not something that you can see if you're looking at a 5-minute chart. So, understanding where these baselines are is so important because you've got a really good guide to tell you where price is likely to go next. Because as we know with the DTB bars, is the price is either going to return to the baseline or it's going to form a new baseline. So, that is something that is continually going forward. And right now, as you can see, we are forming a wick over here, and very, very high likelihood we're going to have this price return to this baseline, depending on what we're seeing on our signal charts. So now what we can do is we can look at this on a smaller chart. Okay, so here we have, if I go into the data series, you'll see we have a 660 chart, also with 60 days loaded, and I've got the same trading hours break line. So we now have a lot more baselines for price, giving us a bit more information on intraday levels. Still have a baseline width of 60 ticks. So on our previous chart, or on this chart we were just looking at, you'll see that the baseline itself, if you actually measure it, the baseline itself is 100 ticks, which is quite, it's a way of also being able to scalp, while the price is running the baseline. So on our 660 chart, we have the same thing over here, but instead of having the 1800, we actually have or the 100 baseline, now we have a 60 baseline. So again, the price is, you can see the previous baselines for price returning, and we're currently on a wick at the moment where the price is, if you measure that, it is basically 364 ticks away from the baseline. Okay, but it can be a bit more challenging to see what price is doing, on this week, because there's a lot more baseline breaks, But fortunately, we have a incredible tool that we can add to this chart to aid us in identifying where the banks and institutions are planning to do with price. And this is our Fibonacci Levels indicator. So we're going to pop that indicator on, and we're going to cover a small update I made to this indicator a little bit later on this call. But in the moment, what we're going to do is we're going to untick the two bottom values, which is the 5-minute and the intraday. We're going to click on apply, and this is going to be added to this chart, and give that a moment to calculate. And this is going to basically show us the retracement of price from various levels. So obviously we've had a high level recently. So if we look at our chart on the 29th, which excuse me, which was on Thursday. So there was the last high on Thursday, as we saw on that baseline break. And then we had the price basically come back down, retest or confirm at previous baselines, break back down again, come and touch the 50 level, break up again, and then back to this major baseline over here. So when we have an indicator like this to help us identify the price movements, the retracement levels of those, it gives us a lot of information that otherwise traders will not actually have access to. Now what we can do is we can look at these two charts together. So I'm going to bring up the larger chart over here, which is this one over here, and we're going to put this one just underneath it so we can get a good look at what this is showing us. Because this is where we can put the vital information, and we can actually make trading decisions based on what we have over here. So I'm going to activate the global crosshair. So I'm going to go to global on the crosshair over here, and the top one's already got global. Now here you're going to see, and it might be a little bit challenging with this chart to just show there we go. So as you can see, I'm just going back a little bit on the chart over here. You can see here is the price over here. It's not quite at a baseline level on the larger chart, but as you can see, the price broke down and it's now coming back down. It's coming back down, and at this point, we're actually at the larger baseline level. And the 600 chart just dropped slightly, but as you can see on the top chart, it's on a bit of a wick. So we have a baseline over here on the smaller chart, which is the 660, and the price is just bouncing along this baseline. And as you can see, it's basically just this wick over here on the top chart. So, based on this, we can do some scalping, and we can also, use this as a way of trading the price back up to the main baseline, which is this level over here. So you can see how, just on comparing these two charts over here, you can see how a wick on a larger chart is a baseline on another chart. And we're able to actually decide, when we see this, is that, can we trade this price back to the baseline? So we can actually create a 600 tick move over here. We can forecast a 600 tick move just by placing our limit orders on this baseline, predicting a baseline break to the upside, because that is what the top chart is showing us as our baseline for price for the day. So, looking at that, it gives us, such incredible, powerful information. And the same thing too, when we're looking at, baseline breaks up on the smaller chart, we're on current wicks, and then we're monitoring what price is doing. We're seeing the price break up to another baseline. At this stage, we can see reversals, a little bit of reversals down over here, but we can almost guarantee or with high probability predict a baseline break to the upside, because we're on such a large wick on the top chart. And, we have these price levels over here. These are, again, guaranteed price levels that are giving us a good, clear indication of, where price currently is. And then all it is a matter of doing is, predicting a baseline break or a return to the baseline. Again, we have the price going up slightly, forming a small wick, coming back down, coming back to that baseline. There we had a huge push up. A next bar again up to the next baseline. This price level over here is basically uncharted waters that we're looking at. And, again, price breaking down, coming back down, and as we see, back to the main baseline. So identifying, where these price baselines are, and then as you can see, when both of these baselines are together, that's a very, very powerful point to be, taking positions, even if you're just scalping, the baseline itself. So looking at that, and that is on the 660 compared to the 1800 and 100. So now we can also have a trending baseline chart. So if we look at this chart over here, we've got a 6600, also with 60 days loaded, the same trading hours break line over there. And so focusing on this, I just want to gather my thoughts about this exactly, because I want to deliver this in a way that's really going to be clear. And, again, we're looking at our, we're trying to compare what price is doing based on the two charts. So if I go and activate my crosshair on the trending baseline chart, we can often see, price at different levels forming these wicks. And as you can see, price coming back, going up, all the way up, breaking back down. And as you can see on the top chart, this huge wick over here, or this huge candle, was actually a break to the baseline, coming back down, all the way coming back down to that baseline. And then at this point here, the price is just bouncing around a specific level on a wick. So we have a wick on the top chart, and we have, this just showing us the price bouncing up and down, within the specific levels. So we can focus on, a smaller bar size also to, work with our, our scalping opportunity. So if I go and move this 1800 chart out the way, and I put this chart on top like this. Okay, so we are seeing this over here. And what I might be doing over here is I'm going to, add a signal chart to this. And what this is going to enable us to do is to, be able to trade this very effectively while predicting those baseline breaks. So going to the indicator, I'm going to just remove the Fibonacci levels indicator from this top chart, just so we can have it a little bit clearer, because we're going to use that Fibonacci on a different chart. So I'll do that on both of these. That one already has it off. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create a signal chart for this. So we've got our 600 baseline. So our 600 tick values, are also good values to work with. Bear in mind that it's a very good idea to always look at our larger baseline too. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to just duplicate this window. I'm going to bring this one. It just makes it a lot simpler than to go and create a new chart. I'm going to increase the size of this. to there and just position everything nicely over here. So we've got the full context of the screen. And with this one over here, I'm just going to disable the crosshair for right now. I'm actually going to close the second chart. Now on this chart over here, we're going to load a 60-60 bar size. And we don't need to have 60 days on this because this is going to be our signal chart. It's not going to be something we need a lot of data on. So even if we load 5 days on there, it is more than sufficient. And, if you're trading during the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you can probably reduce that to 2 days. You just want to have a reasonable amount of data on this, but not a lot that it's going to, just have too much information for NinjaTrader to process. Okay, so so what I'm going to do over here is it's okay that, and I'm going to right click on this chart and I'm going to go load our template. So we're going to go load our show me the money signal chart. So you'll see that's going to load up. It's going to have, that in play over there. Just give me a second. I'm trying to load the account over here. Just give me one moment. Interesting. Just a slight delay with adding the account in the NinjaTrader. Very odd. Okay, all good. Okay, so we continued over there. So, here we have a 60-60 signal chart, and you can see the indicators are still calculating. So always just give the, once you've loaded your signal chart, give the, the indicators time to load. Okay, so now that we're in this chart, we're going to go into the indicator settings, and we are going to just edit some of the indicators. So shadow trading we can leave as it is. On our Fibonacci levels, we could just remove those bottom two values again. So that's just going to remove the the smaller values of the Fibonacci levels. And then for our breakout volume markers, we are going to adjust these. Now remember, we're using a 60-60 bar size over here for our signal chart, because we are chasing much larger baselines. We're chasing much larger tick values that we're going to be going towards. So as this is calculating, we're going to just wait for that to complete, and I should really just apply it after I've adjusted all the settings, but that's okay. We'll just let this work in the background. It did not take this long earlier. I think I might just have a lot running at the moment on my PC. It's slowing things down. So we'll just give this a moment to catch up. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adjusting every single tool on this chart to match the actual bar size that we are working with. And as soon as that is finished calculating, we can continue with that. There we go. Okay, so now our breakout volume markers. So because we're using a 60-60 bar, we want to make this as a 600. So this is our signal distance reset. So we don't want to have too much or too frequent resets when we are working on this. So all we're going to be doing is switching all of these to 600 over here like this. And the last one like this. Manipulation detector we can leave as is, but our trend following, we can actually adjust this to a 60. Now this could be a 60, it could be a 70. I normally work with the bar size that we are actually working on. So I'm going to apply that and let that continue working. And then after this has basically completed, we are going to have a 660 chart and a 60-60 chart, which is, going to give us these, key levels, because we're also looking at guaranteed price levels, which are so important, to identify where price is, where it's likely to go next. So just give this a moment to complete, and we will continue with this. Okay. Yeah, this won't be taking as long on your side. I think I've got my computer's a little bit overloaded because this the screen software that I use, this video software, it consumes so much resources that it actually it destroys my my system a little bit. So which basically slows NinjaTrader down. Okay, so now we're looking at our larger signal chart, and the cool thing now is we can actually go and activate our global crosshairs over here, and you can see where price is. So you can see we're currently on a wick. So look at the larger 660 chart. You can see we're currently on a wick, and as we scroll back, you can see that that is where the baseline is. You can see how as the price comes down, it's forming this wick. And also what is really powerful over here is we can actually see how these 600 tick wicks are actually forming. So just by looking at our signal chart, we can basically use that as predicting those larger moves. So you can see from here, all the way from this baseline over here, as the price, went over our trend following, we had the price nicely controlled over here by our trend following. Yes, we did have some divergences here from our shadow trading indicator, but as long as our price is still holding above this, you can see how this beautifully predicted those baseline breaks. So, we're not chasing small targets here anymore. We actually chased a very, very large move in price over here. And what it's doing is it's helping us by looking at that, the larger baseline chart. Also, if I just duplicate this in a new tab, we can add in our larger chart. So we can have multiple charts on our largest values over here. So going back to this, I'm going to put that in over there. And I'm also going to just put this as our largest chart. So we've got a 1800, 100, then we've got a 60 there. So doing this, you can also see how the price is at different baselines. Now the top chart and the bottom chart are going to basically sync. There's not enough data on this bottom chart, but you can see how the price is forming these wicks and predicting these baseline breaks up. So even on the larger charts, we can see how price is moving, and then we can see from our trend following how the price is forming these wicks, coming back up. There's the top of that small little wick. So you can see at 940 on our top chart, we're on a small little wick over there. And, coming back down again, as the price returns to the baseline, there's our price right back at the baseline again. We've got, these small little wicks forming over here, price divergences, price back at the baseline. And as soon as the price is back at the baseline, we actually have our trend following telling us, that the price is above. So, we're looking at only long entries over here. And ultimately, this can lead to a baseline break, as exactly what we saw happening over there. Right on top of that baseline break, again over there, coming back down, there's our indicator telling us that, this price is in a downward trajectory on a much larger chart, and ultimately giving us all these beautiful signals predicting that much, much larger baseline break. So a absolutely huge move, that can be seen in real time, when you are looking at the bigger picture, first of all, on what the baseline for price is. And then even going to a smaller baseline chart like this, which is the 660, which again is giving us, our baseline breaks. It's giving us our signals, predicting these baseline breaks. Small little moves. Up there's a top of a baseline over there, coming back down, predicting these baseline breaks. So, such a powerful way to be able to, look at what price is likely to be doing next. So all we're trying to do is we're trying to put the odds in our favor by determining, where are the baselines for price. So if we know where those baselines are, we can quite easily judge based on what's happening on our signal charts where that price is likely to go next, because it gives us a heads up quite early on, of what that price is doing. So, this is basically what I wanted to cover on, about this, understanding that, there can be much larger moves in price captured by understanding, where these baseline breaks are. And remember, we're working with guaranteed price levels. So something that, you're going to be able to look at over extended periods of time, which are not easily identifiable when you're looking at, say, like a 5-minute chart or 30-minute chart or any of those minute bars chart, because this chart is meant to determine price levels. It's got nothing to do with time. So I think this is an incredible way. I've got some members who use the DTB bars, in a way like this, where they're looking at the much larger baselines of price. They're looking at, like there we had a baseline break on our 600 chart. So right now we've got a small baseline break to the downside. And if we look at our larger chart, we're still on a wick over here. So we're at a point over here where we could be forming or could be coming down to a 600 tick baseline break on the smaller chart. But then remember, on our larger chart, we're on a small little wick over here. So there's still a very high chance, based on what we are seeing on our signal chart, to either let this price continue to the downside to go and form that 600 brick baseline on our flat baseline chart, or ultimately rise above our trend following and then target the price all the way back to our baseline for price. Cool. So that's what I wanted to really cover. So, a lot of people will be looking at this and thinking, oh my God, I never knew there were baselines for price. I mean, I just, randomly opened up charts, loaded up 5-minute bars and, happily went along. But, understanding that there are key price levels, that price is likely to return to. And like I was saying earlier, as soon as price goes and visits a previous baseline, look at what that baseline did historically. So this current baseline, or this baseline over here to the right, this current baseline, that formed on the 23rd, it was also there on the 12th. So, that's something that you can see, and you can see, what did price do at that last baseline? And also what happened after it basically, was met on that baseline. And in this way, we can actually predict, larger moves in price. And the same can be said about, all the other levels. So price, on a baseline, on a previous session, breaking up, breaking down, back to that baseline, and continuing on. So, it gives us a very good, big overall picture of what price is doing. And you can obviously extend this much further with much larger baselines, but, I think this gives a lot of insight, and the more knowledge you have, the more accurate knowledge you have about price, the better off you are, because you can, make informed trades based on what you are seeing on these charts, and be able to chase much larger moves in the market, because you now have access to these different baselines in play. Cool. So I hope that was helpful, and it's a good idea to watch this for a couple of hours, or watch this for a few trading days. Watch these charts in action, see how they actually react. And, especially when you're looking at your signal chart over here, there's so much insight that this is going to give you. It's giving you all these breakout volume markers are giving you exact points and telling you where price is struggling. So even over here, we have our trend following holding down the price currently. So, even with just general small little scalping over here, just being able to trade from, to the baseline, you still have large values of ticks that you can, be pursuing. But I also want you to look at, the larger moves and see if you can get, these baseline breaks, or you can get the price returning to baselines and chase much larger tick movements. Because at the end of the day, most people will be chasing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 ticks worth of price movement, and they'll be so excited. But meanwhile, they've lost out on, 600 to 1,000 to 1,200 tick price movements. So that makes the difference between somebody who is, absolutely serious about trading, or somebody that's just, trying to get a few little ticks out of the market. Okay, so that is that. And of course, we've been working with the smaller charts too, like the 2020, which, are decent for the slower moving sessions. But, especially when you're getting to the US session and you're getting to the much larger charts, or the much larger price movements, understanding where these levels are is going to make a huge difference, to your consistency, because you're able to, take much larger positions in a specific direction, towards those guaranteed price levels. Okay, what I wanted to cover next. Okay, so that's our Fibonacci levels indicator. So let me just bring that up on the chart. Okay. And as usual, any questions, you can pop them in the group chat over here under group calls. So you can do that. Let me just connect to my, actually. Yeah, I'll connect to my VPS, so just give me a moment for that. Okay. So with regards to our Fibonacci levels, so that was the next thing I wanted to cover on here. So I'll just bring up this this chart, make it full screen over here, and I'll just close off these windows. And I'll go to my data series, and we could just load up a small chart. So let's just go even for a small chart for this one. And this is just going to give us our current day's basically price movement. Okay, so that's a 2020 over here. Now I'm going to load up the Fibonacci levels indicator. So we'll do that. So if we scroll down here, you'll see the Fibonacci levels. Now you're going to notice at the bottom of the Fibonacci levels, I have got a custom period over here. So I've had a few requests over, the last few months, asking me for a slight addition to this Fibonacci levels, where people can choose a very specific time frame to look back. So I've added in an additional level over here, and I've made it yellow. And this is more for your intraday Fibonacci levels. So you can specifically choose a period of time. So like over there, it's got 240 minutes. So if I untick all these other levels over here, and I'll just do that, click on apply, what this is going to do is it's going to show us over the last 4 hours of price trading, what are those levels. So there you can see it's giving us those levels. So it's giving us basically from our 4 p.m., which is the previous session, up until now. So it's giving us those levels, and you can see how, you know, the prices that are high over there coming to a low retracement. Now you can obviously go and reduce that. So as you're trading in the US session, you might want to be monitoring, say, the last, you know, 2 hours of price movement to see what have been, you know, the highs and lows of the current, the last period in play. So, you know, as you know, different times of the day are going to have different, you know, market volatility. So if you're looking at this and you're looking at, you know, this will give you the last 2 hours of, you know, price movement from high to low. So there you can see we had the price, you know, start over there as it's monitoring, reach a new low, it's come back and retest it. So it's a good way of just looking at some intraday levels to be able to give you just some extra insight into, you know, what price is likely to do next. And, you know, you'll often see price bounce around certain levels, come back up, retest, break through, retest. So, you know, that is just something that we've added on over there. So obviously you've got all the Fibonacci levels in place still. But, you know, sometimes you may just want to have your own custom range in there. And this can go anywhere back as far as 600. So the last 10 hours worth of trading you can use for this, and it's going to pick up the highs and lows over that period of time to give you, you know, those retracements of price during, you know, that period. So that's just a little addition to it. And of course, if you don't want to use, if you want to use the Fibonacci level, you know, exactly how it was, you know, released, all you have to do is untick that yellow marker, and it will still just continue as before. So then it'll just continue using those exact same levels that it did before. And of course, there you've got all your, you know, your 5-minute levels. They're all in place. But that just gives you an extra level of, you know, information that you can use in the market. Cool. So I got that. Again, any questions, just please pop them up in the chat over here. Excellent. Okay, so the next thing we're going to cover will be our. So we just looked at that, which was our Fibonacci levels. Okay, now we're going to look at our game plan for the week ahead. Perfect. Okay, so our game plan for the week ahead is using our baseline Wick trader strategy. So that's an incredible strategy that we have been using. So I'm going to bring that up on the screen, and we'll actually log into the VPS again and just look at those levels. Oh, they'll be already in here. Perfect. Okay, so if we go to our control center if I go to my control center and I go to my workspaces, I'm going to just close off our indicator sample. I do not need to save that, and we'll switch over here. Okay, so our game plan document obviously has been updated. So that is over here. Make sure that you're on the 1st of June assembly, which is going to give you the, you know, the latest thing. And I'm going to make sure I'm sharing my screen over here. So just make sure that's in the place. 1 second. Perfect. There we go. Okay, so we on the 1st of June assembly, you know, which includes a huge update to the baseline Wick trader strategy, which we'll cover in a moment. And as usual, there's a document specifically for that strategy. And if you click on that link inside the game plan document, it's going to take you to the baseline Wick trader strategy. So we're going to be trading 4 different M&Q charts this week, just for our game plan. And, you know, obviously over time, we're going to progress to the NQ charts, you know, but, you know, as this is a reasonably new feature, and I know last week we actually did a lot of work in making sure that, you know, I did a lot of work on the back end to make sure that the signals that we were getting were updating correctly. There were actually some late modifications I had to make last week for, you know, that feature to work perfectly well, which it now is. So we've got this in here now. So go into your strategies on your game plan chart. You've got your baseline Wick trader strategy. And what you're going to see over here is we've got the use auto optimize feature. So obviously there's the link to the document that is for that strategy. And as you can see, we got our templates in there. So we're going to be using templates 1, 2, 3, and 4 this week, which is, which is stated over here on our document. And what I've done over here is I've actually included all the bar sizes that we're working with, and I put screenshots for each chart. So looking at this again, as you can see, obviously the auto optimize feature is going to be there. So all you need to do is follow the document as usual. Load up the workspace, select the strategy, load up the template, and everything else inside here is going to be as normal. The only thing that you will be do after you have loaded up your template is go and select your trading account. And then, you're obviously going to be able to select that, enable, apply, and OK. And when you load that strategy, all you have to do is just click on F5 to refresh the chart. That's just going to make sure that the latest settings are updated, and that's going to load. Now, looking closer at the chart, you will see at the top section over here, we've got the strategy name. We've got what settings the strategy is currently on. We've got the start time, the stop time, the end time. And then I've also added a little bit of additional text over here to give you a bit more information on which specific entries are being, taken by the strategy. So I call them the takes. So in the strategy section, in the strategy settings, you will see it's got take first entry, take second entry, take third entry, take fourth entry. So you can see we've only got the 2 tick boxes selected over here. So we've only got takes 1 and 2. And what I've done here is I just put in brackets there, that's the size of the contract. Oh, I might make this a little bit bigger actually, just for this example. This is a bit difficult to see, and make it 20, that'll be clear. There we go. Okay, so it's telling us takes 1, so it's a size 3, and the stop is 40, or the target is 40, the stop is 200. The second one, take 2, the size is 2 contracts, the target is 60, and the stop is 200. So that is what that information is giving you on this chart. It does have an account box over there, so you're still able to go into your strategy and adjust the account button width. So if you want to, when you post screenshots, if you're going to post screenshots in advance for your strategies, all you need to do is go to your account button width over here. And that will just hide, your account size. So it'll minimize the size of the button so it doesn't show your full account details. Okay, so I've got some really cool templates in here. You'll see it's already set to go. You can even run these strategies chartless. If we look at our performance of these, we can look at, this is what this one is showing historically as being done with these specific settings. Going back there, so we are expecting some really good results with the game plan this week. And as usual, if there's new settings that present themselves, I can actually push those through automatically without you guys, doing anything there. So back into the properties, I'm going to change the size back again. I think it was like 11. Okay, like this. Okay, our second one. So we'll go into our second one, strategy. Baseline Wick Trader, template load. No, it's going to show up number 2, which is this one over here. So again, all we're doing is just following the document. That's number 2. As soon as it loads, you can F5 refresh it. Just get in the habit of doing that because it's really just helpful. Strategies on our third chart. Again, it's we load our template 3. Choose your account you're going to load it on. Activate it, F5 refresh, go, and then template number 4, same thing. Okay, baseline Wick Trader, load template number 4, remember, always load it over here. So template, load number 4, like this. And obviously when you load that, it's going to pre-populate all of this. So you know all of that's in play. Select your trading account, enable, apply, and OK. And refresh. So that's our 4 charts that we got in there. And if you look at the game plan document, you know, I've put a screenshot there of how they all look once activated. So once you follow the instructions on how to basically set this up properly, which is all very clear on here, especially with the different bar sizes, you don't have to take too much notice of what it says over here. It's just telling you, you know, what the strategy settings are automatically being controlled. But there is a screenshot over here so that you can compare it to what you are looking at. And then finally, at the end, just compare it to this over here. Good. And then I'm going to obviously load this up on my live account a bit, you know, later, and you know, run this for the week. So, you know, please continue posting your results in our chats, so we can monitor how that is performing on your side. And we are going to kick ass with this. I'm pretty damn sure. Okay, so this is our baseline Wick Trader. Nice update to it. You know, I also mentioned in one of our chats that I'm going to enable some of our users to be able to, you know, save templates and allocate them specific templates on our document, so that when they update templates, it can be automatically pushed out to members too, and also update their own strategy. So it's a win-win for everybody. Cool. So guys, thank you very much for jumping on the call. I hope it wasn't too much information to cover. Please look at the larger baseline for price. I mean, it is such an incredible, powerful feature, you know, to evaluate. And I'm just going to quickly bring this up and just see what it's looking like at this moment. I've actually closed that chart, but I might even very quickly just duplicate this and just adjust the data series to our 660. And yeah, I'm just using 660. You can use, you know, different sizes over there, you know, for whatever value. And especially if you're using ES or you're using any of the other contracts, you'll obviously adjust them appropriately, but make sure that the bar sizes that you are using are basically in increments of one another, so that you've got a really clear flowing baseline chart. And we'll just check where this one is. So that's still busy loading. Just give it one more moment to come up, and we shall end it there. Taking a bit longer. Okay. Of course, I do have a lot of data. So it is 60 days. It's not a crazy amount, but especially using a larger bar, it's not a lot of data that it's actually bringing up. But, you know, it's still a decent value to work with. What we can also do is we could also calculate currently how far price is away from the baseline just by doing that. Okay, so there's our 606. So it still has not formed a new baseline to the downside. So the price will have to touch this level for that, you know, for that price to break down to the baseline. So this could be a small baseline break up like it did over here. And then it's an amazing thing to be able to do is to monitor that signal chart on the larger bar values to see where the trend following is, where the breakout volume markers are. And I challenge you guys to chase a 600 tick target on your entries. You know, predict that baseline break, predict the price also returning to the larger baseline for the day. You know, I would love to see you guys, you know, chase really big targets. You know, a lot of people are messing around with 5-minute bars where they're chasing a few ticks here and there. Whereas, you know, this is one of the few charts where you can actually chase much larger values at guaranteed price levels. Wonderful. Okay, thank you guys for jumping on the call, and we shall be here same place next week. We're going to cover the signal chart next week. Really going to be insightful, going to provide people a no-brainer of why the DTB system is the absolute best that can be used for trading. Thank you guys, and chat soon.